Hi guys, welcome to Creative Making. I'm Pete, and in this video I'm going to be making a silicone prosthetic transfer. Just before we start this video properly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of using reference. The piece that I'm making in this video is a fairly gory thing, and rather than just trying to make it up and make it look gory, I spent a little bit of time looking through Google and I eventually found the image of the piece that I wanted to make. You'll see that in a second. It's really important if you're not quite sure about what you want to make, or if you want to make a bullet hole. Here's some pictures of real bullet holes. It's not very nice looking for these images, but it'll make your work a lot more realistic. Bullet holes do not look like volcanoes. You know, there's a lot of things that you can learn from looking at the real thing. So go out there, find some reference. Yeah, so there you go, reference, get some now. Right then, so we're going to start off with sculpting. So I'm going to use this piece of melamine board to sculpt on. Also going to need a selection of sculpting tools. My preferred clay, which is NSP medium, non-sulfur plastiline. Some liquid lighter fluid. Also going to need a snazzy pencil. Along with that, we'll have a selection of brushes, and finally we'll use a little bit of this stipple sponge, a reticulated sponge. This is the reference that I'm working from. It's a photograph of a real injury. It's pretty gnarly. I'm going to use this as rough reference. I'm not going to copy it identically, but I'm going to get fairly close to it. First thing I do then is just to roughly start sketching out the piece on the board. This gives me an idea of size, proportion. It also makes things easier to sculpt. Around the outside, that gives me the size of the piece. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and start to sculpt. And the first thing I'm doing is making lots of little worms, and I'll work around the outside of the actual wound itself. You don't need to be super accurate on this because we'll come back and tidy it up a bit later on. So once that's done, oh, weird. Once that's done, I'll fill it in with blobs of clay, making some of the planes a little bit higher than others, so we've got interesting detail there. And then I'm just going to smooth that all in with various tools, brushes, rakes. Water on your finger works really well to smooth this out. So take this brush, give it a good old brush over, and use that reticulated sponge. Just going to work into the edge detail of the piece there, do a couple of little flaps. Now I'm going to just take this kitchen sponge, rip it up, and I'm going to use the rough side of that with some lighter fluid. I'm going to stipple all over the surface. This kind of smooths it out a little bit, but it also gives it a good texture. While that's drying off, I'm going to start making some clay slurry. You'll see why in a minute. I'm going to use a bit of clay and some lighter fluid, make little balls, lighter fluid, and leave that to one side. While that's soaking, I'm going to come in with some little loop tools, and I'm going to start making my knee texture. A few different texture tools there, a roller, there's a wrinkle tool I used earlier on. I'm just going to build this texture up. Skin isn't just one texture, it's made up of all kinds of textures, so I work on this for a little bit. Tiny little loop there to pull out some more wrinkles. Right, now that's been left for a while, I'm just going to use my paint mixer. I'm going to mix it up and make a slurry. You can see the lighter fluid has diluted the clay. And I'm going to stipple all over it with that, and then I'm going to use it, the slurry, to make the internal detail there. Once that's done, I'm going to take this cut down chip brush and I'm going to spatter little dots of that slurry all over. It'll give the surface a more realistic finish. And then finally, once that spatter is dried, I'm just going to stipple up a little layer all over and fill some more detail on the inside. And that's pretty much it done. That took about maybe 2 hours to sculpt. Just clean the board up. I'm going to start with the flashing. I'm going to use my clay extruder and a little bit of clay. If you don't have one of these, you can just roll out some clay and use a ruler and a sharp knife and cut strips of clay. I just find this a lot easier. Once they're out, just going to trim up the ends, make them nice and square, and then push it down to the board roughly where I want the flashing to be. All the way around the outside, there we go. Final cut, tidy that up, and then just tidy up those joins there with that little tool. Just take a little bit of lighter fluid then and a soft brush, go around the outside, give it a good clean. That also helps it stick down to the board. So here I'm just going to start to make the wall to get ready to make the mould. I'm using 5mm foam board. Pretty cheap, you can get it from most art shops. And I'm going to use a ruler and I'm going to cut 3 strips. Thankfully on this one, the width of my ruler is plenty high enough for the mould wall. So I'm going to cut 3 strips out of the foam board and then get rid of that excess that we don't need. And then I'm going to take a little engineer's square, and on the backs of these 3 strips I'm going to cut some little vertical lines. That means I can bend the foam board and it won't snap. Do that with all 3. There we go. Cool. So I'm just going to mark here on the board. I don't normally do this, I'm just doing it so you guys can see. Just roughly the distance between the flashing and the board. Also going to mark roughly the thickness of the foam board there. That kind of illustrates really how much space you need to have around your sculpture to take into consideration for moulding. If you were to do your thing there, there'd be no space to mould. Right, so hot glue, just using that little bit of foam board there as a guide to get the distance between the flashing right all the way around. We'll just work my way around, glue those down with little dots of hot glue. And then once it's all on, then I go around the whole thing with hot glue. It's really important to make sure you've got that really sealed. So I'm going to mix up the silicone. I'm using Mold Star 30. It's a 2-part platinum silicone. Before you mix it, you really must stir these well. You can have all sorts of issues if you don't stir these. Give them both a good stir. And then I'm going to measure out equal parts of A and B into this bowl and give it a thorough mixing. It's very satisfying watching that. There we go. So there's no streaks of colour, nothing in there. It's nicely mixed. I'm going to take our level board. There's a link above there if you want to see how I made this. Make sure that's level both ways and put our piece on the board and pour that silicone. Note, I'm only pouring it in one place. Let the silicone flow and then we'll leave that to cure. Okay, that took way more than 30 seconds to cure. Left it overnight in fact, and there it is, nice and cured. It's a really nice silicone this. It's fairly firm, 30 sure, and the fact that it's blue is really great for when you're actually running your piece. So just carefully peel that off, and if you're careful, then your piece and everything will remain on the board, so if you need to make another mould, you can. There we go. Okay, so before we move any further, I need to clean up all this mess around the edge. It's not important to how the mould works, but it's important to make sure that your moulds are neat and tidy. It's really important to clean this edge bit off so it sits right on the board. There we go. Just trim that inside bit there. You could have issues with your cat plastic and what have you if you don't clean that up. Nip around there with some little nail scissors. Just give that a quick clean with some alcohol and a rough brush, give it a scrub. I actually wash this with soapy water as well just to make sure. There we go, all ready. So I'm just going to colour match some of this silicone. I'm just going to pour some part B into this cup. The silicone, flesh coloured silicone pigments are never that brilliant, so I want to try and get this a bit closer to my colour. So I started off with some white. I'm going to stick this on my leg, and my legs have never seen the sun. Oh god, don't get pigment on your desk, it's a right pain to clean up. So anyway, I've put some flesh in there, I've put some red, that's blue flock. Tiny bit of green, it's getting closer, a bit more green, there's a bit closer. Bit of red just to warm things up a bit more. Last bit of red, and you can see the difference there between the actual pigment and the colour that I've mixed. The dot on the stick there is just to help you get the right translucency. If you put your stick in the silicone and you leave it for a few seconds, you can just see that dot on the stick, and it kind of matches the veins in your arm, so you're kind of in the right ballpark there. And don't forget, we're going to add part A to that as well, which will make it more translucent. So the mould is ready. I've actually released it off camera. I've put Vaseline, epoxy par film, and then a couple of layers of wax. In this I'm going to use cue balls, which is Bentley Chemicals version of cat plastic. It's mixed to a 5:1 ratio, 5 parts acetone to 1 part plastic, and it gives you this nice runny but syrupy mixture. And I'll put that in a little plastic cup. Make sure it's the right plastic so it doesn't melt with the acetone. Normally I would airbrush this. This is my Iwata HPC. The pot is a bit too small for this, and that little cordless compressor is not powerful enough for that. So I would usually use this one. It's got a bigger pot, it's connected to the compressor, and that trigger on there just makes it really nice and comfortable. It's a Grex, but unfortunately my compressor doesn't work. So I've had to brush the cat plastic into the mould. It's not ideal, but if you do this way, make sure you just use a nice soft artist brush and put your layers on fairly thin and build plenty of layers up. So here I think I did 5 or 6 layers, and I hair dried it between each layer just to kind of speed things up really. And then the final layer that I did on this, I put a little bit thicker, and then I just left it to dry naturally. There we go, slightly thicker layer, and then I just leave that to dry naturally, and Rubik's Cube time. Okay, while that's drying, I just wanted to look at this silicone. I've not used this EcoFlex gel before. It's a sort of slackened silicone. It's very soft. It's really sticky. The problem is, for these types of things, it's got a 2-hour cure at room temperature, which for me is a little bit too slow. So I spoke to the boys at Bentley's and they have this product called Plaque-Cat. So I tried it. I put 2% Plaque-Cat into this silicone and it took it from a 2-hour cure to a half-an-hour cure. And here it is. It's really clear. There's no pigment in that, obviously. And when it cures, it's really tacky, but it's super soft. I'm sure that clarity there, could use that for some interesting projects in the future. Lovely, super soft, super clear. It's surprisingly strong as well for a softened silicone. Lovely. Okay, so back with our level board, we're going to cast the piece now. So get our mould on there. We're just going to check that cap plastic is thick enough, and to do that, we'll just take a little pin and we'll use the very edge of the piece there, and we'll just pick it up with a pin. And if you do that and there's no air bubbles or holes in that, then you know it's thick enough, which it is, which is great. So the whole thing's covered. We've checked that it's thick enough. Here we go, we'll mix some pre-coloured B, stick some A in there, give it a thorough mix like before, and then we're just going to dump that into the middle of the mould, and then we're going to use a metal scraper lightly to we used a bit of foam core there. Metal scraper to lightly move the silicone from side to side, making sure everything's covered, and then I used a bit of lighter fluid there to clear up some bits of silicone. So it's cured now. I'm just going to go on with another couple of layers of cap plastic on the back, because that silicone's so sticky once it's cured. If you didn't put cap plastic on the back, it'd stick to everything. But also this means that you can use Prosthetic to glue it on with, because well, Telesis and all that is really super expensive. I ended up using Dermatac from Bentley for this particular project. But because you're sticking cap plastic down to the skin, Prosthetic is great. And there we go, it's all dry, so we need to remove it from the mould. Normally I would use translucent powder for this, but I don't have any, so talc will do fine. We'll put that on the back only. If you've released the mould enough, you should be able to take this out of the mould without using tons of powder. So slowly ease it out. Taking my time over the middle bits. Pull it out of the mould. Lovely, no powder to get it out. Nice. And there it is. Nice and soft. Before we go any further though, I'm just going to trim the edge of this. You don't need to use these straight away actually, you can trim them all up, make them look nice, and then you can store them by pinning them down to a bit of spare foam board, and then they're ready to use whenever you're ready really. Nice pair of sharp scissors then, and we're just going to trim all that flashing off there. And there we go. Alright, let's stick it on. Okay, so that brings us to the end of that video. Thanks very much for watching and staying until the very end. I really do appreciate it. If you like what you've seen, just hit the like button there, and please consider subscribing and smashing that bell so you get notifications when the next video comes out. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to the guys over at Bentley Advanced Materials for once again sponsoring this video. Without you guys, I just wouldn't be able to do them, so I really appreciate your help. If you're interested in using Bentley's materials, then you can head over to their website to have a look at what they've got, or even better still, they have two shops. They have one in Kidderminster and they have one in Feltham, so you can go in, you can have a look at their stuff, you can talk to the guys behind the counter, get some samples, stuff like that. So yeah, so they do materials for everything. If you have a project, they'll do materials for it. I mustn't forget actually, if you've enjoyed this video, if you like it, you want to have a go, but you want to try it and learn it hands-on, then I'm going to be doing a 2-day class over at Bentley Advanced Materials in the Feltham branch. Not quite sure when it's going to be. We did actually plan on doing it earlier this year, but because of you know what, that never happened. So it'll be either towards the end of this year or the beginning of next year. But I'll do a 2-day class and we'll all make a flat piece together, or 2 flat pieces, depends how quick you are, and you will get all the materials you need included in the price. You might even get a cup of tea and a sandwich as well. So yeah, so if you're interested in doing that, as I say, it's a 2-day class. Just keep an eye on Bentley Advanced Materials website. I'll put a link down in the description, and keep an eye on their social media and stuff like that, and they'll make announcements when we finally got the date. Okay, I'm going to tidy this mess up and I shall see you on the next video. Thanks very much, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.